What's going on today, guys? This is gonna be another shorter video, but the topic for today's video is gonna be on loss and how most of the lessons that seem intuitive or common sense are lessons that we most of the time have to learn the hard way instead of just taking the wisdom of other people. So one definition that's pretty popular for wisdom is learning what to do from other people's mistakes. Not having to make the mistakes yourself, learning from other people, right? So, for instance, the crackhead under the bridge could be there because of all the drugs he did. Therefore, the lesson I'm going to take from that is don't do a bunch of drugs, right? You know, pretty common sense for a lot of these things. And I mentioned this in another video, how life is incredibly simple, but there's so many simple things to remember that that's what makes it difficult, right? In terms of a sheer capacity to remember everything and to make sure you're taking action on all the things that you're supposed to remember at the same time. So in terms of loss, this is something that really makes you reanalyze your entire situation. So the best example I can think of is for stocks, right? So I have not always, but I have invested in a couple of stocks, or Bitcoin, Dogecoin, some different like cryptocurrencies over the years. And my issue is I would never sell at the top, right? Just like a lot of people, I'm sure you can relate to this. So I am not very good at stocks. I've never had a lot of success. I would, get advice from a friend or something like everyone else who said it was a good stock, and then it would go up, up, up. You make a good return, like double your money or something. But I would never sell because I thought it would just keep going up. It's like 16, 17, just assuming that that's how things work, right? You just pick a good one and it's going to continue to stay relevant. Like the Warren Buffett advice, like invest in something you think is going to keep going up or something you believe in that provides value, and then just stay in it for life, right? And it's supposed to go up. But the reality is most of these companies are not going to be the next Coca-Cola, the next Apple, the next Amazon, the next Nvidia, right? That's just statistically unlikely to be the case. So I ended up losing, more money than I put in for most of these things. And it's the idea that we can make so much more money is the benefit to that, right? While the risk often gets outweighed. And a lot of the times we will kind of get to where we wanted to be initially. And if we would have just stopped once we've, doubled our money, everything would be good. We'd be happy. It's that natural human instinct to just want to do a little more, do a little better, get a little bit more. And then for me, it has not worked out very well. So this kind of goes into the timeless principles that wisdom is in listening to other people's mistakes to not make them yourself. So my friend was telling me today that the best investors are the ones who make the least amount of trades. So making like one trade a week or one trade a month, right? But a trade that you are confident is going in the right direction, right? Something that is already happening, not something that you're kind of basing off of an instinct or feeling or something that you think will happen. So that's a big difference between waiting for something to be for sure and having a feeling for something. Which may be a little different in terms of starting a business per se, but for investments that is like the sound philosophy. This kind of goes into the whole thing of discipline is a game of subtraction. I'll keep saying this, but being disciplined is not about doing more. It's not about making more trades. It's not about, adding more things to your morning routine, adding more things to your monk mode, to your evening routine, more things for you to do throughout the day. It's about eliminating the things that aren't your main thing. And that is really what's going to give you the biggest benefit towards what you're doing. So I have to remind myself often because there's so much shiny object syndrome, so much information overload where there's so many opportunities, so many different directions you can go now with either AI, with stocks. Like the stock market is at the highest it's ever been in the history of the stock market right now. And yet some people have lost a lot of money, some people have gained a lot of money, depending if you timed it right or didn't, right? But the whole thing is, what are you doing on your day-to-day, right? Are you locked in on one thing, your main thing that you're trying to make progress on? Because at the same time, like a lot of this is just kind of noise if you're not focusing on your main task. It just becomes a distraction. So another thing that's really important to mention while you're doing the main thing is you need to figure out what your main source of dopamine is. So what is giving you dopamine every week that you're kind of incrementally improving on? Because dopamine is the reward mechanism, right? It's what your brain gives you for accomplishing a goal, for doing something you set out to do. Some examples are, stocks. You go up in your stock, your trade, right? Boom, you get dopamine. Or you make the trade, boom, you get the dopamine, that adrenaline from, putting the money down. Or for social media, for YouTube, you look at the analytics and you see the numbers go up, the views, the subscribers, right? And this becomes a trap in a way because you've switched your mentality from what is the inputs I can put in to the result that's coming out, right? But at the end of the day, you can't control the stock market. You can't control people watching your videos or not, liking, subscribing, right? You can only control the inputs that you are putting in, the actions that you are taking on a daily basis. You can control making the video or not making the video. You can control waiting patiently to make the right trade or not making the right trade. You can't control it going up. You can't control what other people are going to do. It's super important to keep this principle in mind, right? Discipline is a game of subtraction, not addition. It's what you take away that adds more to your main thing than any other thing that you can add. But oftentimes in life, you learn much more from your losses than you learn from your wins. How many of your losses throughout, your youth have stuck with you more than your wins? I would argue there's more to be learned in those losses than the victories, because that's when you have to really think and reanalyze what didn't work. And the beauty of it is, usually every time you lose, there's something you could have done differently. There is a reason, right? There is a cause and an effect. It's not random most of the time, as much as we would like to not take accountability and think it is. So reanalyze the situation. What could you have done better? Write it down. Take some time to reflect on this. Make sure you have a main source of dopamine. Like for me, that's working out. I love working out. I use this as a benchmark to get my dopamine, right? I'll increase all my strength exercises each week and try to make progressions. And this is what I get my dopamine from beating a personal best. This way I don't have to rely on my dopamine from, likes, subscribers, getting more clients, making more money in the stock market or whatever else, right? I have a consistent, steady source that's going to give me dopamine as long as I put in the right inputs, right? And, you can always readjust or pick a different goalpost, right? But usually you want to make it something that you can put in. So maybe instead of even hitting a weight that you want to hit, just hitting a certain amount of workouts a week, right? If you can just get in the gym for those workouts, that is the dopamine, that is the win. And then just gamifying it and making it more fun while you're doing it. But yeah, with that being said, kind of wrap it up. The losses will stick with you, but make sure there's something you're taking away from it. It's always tough in the moment, and we're always more ashamed than we want to let on. And a lot of it comes down to our perception of what we think other people will think about it. But in reality, everyone's in their own head. Everyone's thinking about their own thing. They're not thinking about you or your loss. It may be the whole thing, your whole world that you're thinking about maybe coming crumbling down around you. But the reality is, this is normal. Everyone's been there. And it's not over, right? You've learned the lessons. You'll pick yourself up from your bootstraps, and you'll try again and do better with your new information, right? These are the steps that you can't see from the beginning of the journey, that you can only see as you get closer and closer to the goal, right? So, thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Take it easy. And remember, take consistent action on your main thing. Don't stop. Peace.